Hello everyone, welcome to the March 2nd CSGO DFS slate. Sorry for that. um, Quickly, this is a super speedrun video. This is obviously 2 hours before lock, as you guys could see in the top right. So I know probably like three of you will probably get use out of this, even of that. But essentially, I'm trying to work on fixing my sleep schedule. I woke up at about midnight, so about 7 a.m. before, or 7 hours before the slate was live. And I figured, like, people who made their lineups probably already did so last night. They're probably not going to be able to make any use of this video. So shout out to, I believe, 1994 on Twitter. He asked me to make this video. So I know if at least one person will get use out of it, then, I can always down to just talk, esports DFS at least. Again, this is going to be a super speed run, so I'm sorry if it's not as in depth as it necessarily should be and as I typically talk about. We're picking up right where we left off yesterday with the Pinnacle Winter Series. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely smashed yesterday. I posted the screenshot on Twitter. I got first in every single entry thing I entered, and then I got fifth in the like 2K to first. I think for it was like 150. But obviously, a top five when you're only entering a single bullet is you know pretty good and kind of what you're aiming for there. The first series we're going to talk about is the Eklot Ambush. Eklot Ambush series. Again, we've seen all these teams play yesterday, so it's just kind of going to be like a like resuming yesterday's talk, pretty much. Again, it's going to be a lot of close series. Young Ninjas over Suba is relatively one-sided in the odds market. That's the only one there. But we'll talk about my approach and kind of what I'm thinking about that stuff in a second. The first one is, again, Eklot Ambush. I'm honestly kind of like a little surprised that Eklot is like this much of a favorite. I mean, they do have like decent results here. Astralis Talent are probably like one of the top teams in all of Pinnacle Winter Cup. If we look at the, sorry, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Trying to navigate. Oh, events. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So we look at the overall view of the tournament and how it's breaking down. We see Young Ninjas, Astralis Talent, Alternate Attacks, Isuba at the top. They're looking relatively decent, specifically when you look at the round differential. That's a really good indicator as well of like how much they're beating these teams by. Young Ninjas, Astralis Talent up there a good bit. Again, it's only a 28 round differential in 2 matches, so that's not much. A lot of these teams are very close. This is a very condensed league. So that's a little exciting. And so kind of keep that in mind as we talk forward about this a little bit. Again, I'm kind of just not understanding why Eklot is getting like this much love, really. The lines have already moved since when I checked them, like when I woke up this morning. I want to say Dynamo is like a minus 130 or something, and it's down. They're up to minus 141. So it seems like the steam is coming on them a little bit. Again, I'm just kind of a little not sure why. Again, I don't think like Ambush have that good of match history either. Again, we have like little to none sample size here when I'm talking about these teams. We have 2 series for the Eklot team. We have 3 series for this Ambush team. So again, very little, very little. They do have like a close defeat. They got the map win over Astralis Talent. They have a win over Nexus, who I think is like a somewhat respected team, at least in my mind. On the Ambush side, they've lost to Alternate Attacks and Anonymo. They have a win over Entropic Prague. The win over Entropic Prague is not that doesn't do a lot for me, just because I don't think much of the Entropic Prague roster. But again, this is a super close, very competitive, like 50-50 style game. The kind of decider here for me, at least, is when it comes down to the kill shares and looking at the like KD ratios. I expect this to be like a close series. Its odds to go to 3 maps is, I guess it's not doing that well. It's about a 50-50 chance. But I expect like if Ambush wins, Sixer is going to have a really, really great score. The kill share really is super condensed onto Sixer. That can be like a blessing and a curse because if the team does well, he's very likely to do well. He is going to be super chalky because of that. If we look at the DK pricing, he's super cheap. He's 7,400, very affordable, very easy to fit in. Um, then when you look over to the Eklot side, their two best players, Detour and Fida, they're 9K and 8K, so very tough to get in. And again, they don't necessarily have a that condensed of a kill share like Capson and Nubik have had some decent performances as well, and they're not that cheap either. Um, the kind of big thing here for me, at least, is when we look at the ambush series that they did win. Um, it's just super impressive stuff. Sixer did really well. Devo Duvek did really well. He's a name that I recognize from the French scene as well. So I think I'm just gonna kind of go with those two names. We know this is probably gonna be close. It's just, like these kind of games are just kind of always feel coin flippy to me. Um, yeah, I mean that's just kind of it. And then we kind of know if it's gonna be close, then Ambush is gonna have a super condensed kill share. If Ambush win, like that's still the same case. I just find it tough to pay these ECL price tags for their Ecolot players. I do think Daitor is probably a pretty good leverage play if you're doing like multi-entry stuff, but it's relatively unlikely. So maybe I think there is like an alternate way to play this slate. I think if you went with ECL and then a series I'm about to talk about, Team Sampy is really underpriced as well. They're pretty cheap. So if you went with like ECL and Sampy, I think that's a pretty solid build. I think it's probably going to be one leverage spot, and then you're eating the chalk on Sampy. I'm just not sure. We'll have to look at this slate as a whole overall. But for now, I think I'm just going to lean with the ambush side. I just feel like, again, Sixer is way too cheap. I feel like this is a fine spot for him. He let everyone down yesterday. I don't know if that's necessarily going to affect anything because most of the people I see kind of choose like optimizers or models anyway. I think that's going to be something I'm going to make a video about overall a different time. But I think currently in esports, people rely pretty heavily on optimizers and modeling and that kind of stuff. So I think if we look at that, I think people are going to be pretty heavy on Sixer. I can't imagine Daitor and Fida will be popular. I'd imagine they're both going to be like at least sub like 15%, maybe sub 10. And then if you think ECL do well, you're hoping Sixer does poorly. So that's another like leverage spot there. I don't know. I spent a lot of time talking on this one. I just realized. So, yeah, I think it's probably just going to be a Sixer one-off for me. Maybe getting to Devo Duvek if you need the super cheap player. I think he's a little underpriced relative to upside. Again, because we did see him do well in their one win. He hasn't been looking good in their losses, but again, you're kind of not playing him for the losses. You're playing him for hoping that he does well and win. That's kind of it. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the what you're aiming for. So going to the next series, we have Sampy versus EC Bruges. This one is actually pretty interesting as well because, like I was talking about just a minute ago, the like optimizer people are going to have a probably different view than I am on this one. I think if you probably run optimizers, I think you're probably going to get a pretty heavy amount of these Sampy players. Again, looking at their stats, they've been winning a lot. They're 7-3. That's the reason why we faded them yesterday against Isuba, is that their stats are most likely going to be super inflated, and they were. I saw a lot of Sampy when I was looking at the lineups and like my other single entry stuff, specifically like the $27 single entry, the $12 single entry, that kind of stuff. I saw a lot of Xerus, Questone, Twist, even some System. I saw one Darber lineup. It seemed like the optimizer is spitting out Sampy pretty heavily, and I don't know if that's necessarily going to change here. I mean, that's kind of it. I think this is like, I think they are pretty underpriced. They are the underdog, but again, it's very close. I don't think it's necessarily going to change. I think earlier when I saw this, EC Bruges was like minus 750 or something, minus 175. Sorry, big difference there. But so it looks like maybe things are moving towards the team Sampy a little bit. I do think, generally speaking, Sampy is underpriced. I definitely think Xeris at 78 is super cheap. Maybe Questone 72, Twist at 64. So like that's a super cheap triple stack. Probably you don't want to get to a triple stack on a slate like this where it's so close. Uh, the likelihood that a third player from Sampy does well than like a first or second player from another team is pretty low. So I don't like that on this slate at least. Um, but I think just the kind of what I saw from Ishii Bruges yesterday is they have a super condensed kill share, and again, it seems like if they win, they're going to do really well through Gringo and Richie. Looking at just like the maps they've won so far, it's been Gringo and Richie doing really well. So I'm just kind of buying into that. They are the favorites here, and I think that they're going to be. Oh, this one's not good for Gringo. Um, but again, they have like a relatively condensed kill share as well. As you can see, Gringo and Richie have a lot higher kill death ratios than the rest of their teammates, Steve Oaks, Notice, and Maddie. Again, it's not looking great. Their record and like overall kills, kill death ratios and stuff is looking pretty poor. So I think if anything, that kind of just will drive people towards Sampy. I think Sampy is going to be like a popular place to get some good value from, especially Zurus, maybe Questone, maybe Twist. These are kind of like interchangeable for me. They're both about fairly priced as a good second or third option. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go pay up for EC Bruges, Richie and Gringo. They're pretty expensive, but again, I think that's a super leverage play, and I'm getting the favorite at. I'm getting like the two best players on a favorite, and at what I expect to be pretty low ownership, probably again sub 15, sub 20, something like that percent. So I'm gonna take my shots there. The third series is so these last two aren't as interesting, but they still have some things to talk about. We have Young Ninjas versus Isuba. Young Ninja's the biggest favorite on the slate against Isuba. Isuba was the team I liked yesterday. I just feel like the reasons I liked them yesterday definitely don't apply to today. I was pretty impressed with this team when I watched the game. I'll give them that. But like overall, I just think there's too big of a skill disparity here for sure. Young Ninjas are probably just like a little bit higher level of players. There is one small concern that we have Sapek, who sat out yesterday. I'm not sure what the situation was, but they had to bring in BQ to fill in for them. BQ actually did really well for them. He was like one of their highest performing players. So that was a little bit of concern. Again, these Young Ninja players, considering that they are the biggest favorite, are super expensive. I don't really love anybody at their price except for Linus here at 8,600. He's kind of like the only piece I liked, really. I wasn't really impressed with the stats on any of these other players. Rolf at 78 is fairly affordable if you want to try to get a decent chance at like the sweet bonus, and he has decent stats. He was a good member for me yesterday. I'd like to get up to Sapik. I think Sapik is a very strong pay up to be contrarian option, but again, it's kind of tough to get salary savings on this slate unless you go pretty heavy with like Sampy. And that's just not where I want to go. I want to pay up to be contrarian with EC Bruges. I don't think you're getting that much of a contrarian spot on Young Ninjas because they are the biggest favorite on the slate. So they're probably going to be like pretty relatively owned. Like I butchered that, but they're going to be highly owned relative to the slate. So that's my point there. I do think there is some good upside with Sapik. But again, I'm not a... That's just a tough price to pay, I think, at that price, up in 96. So the way I'm approaching this one is I think there is going to be a good amount of leverage if you do want to go to Isuba. We see this a lot in other slates. Typically, the biggest favorite gets heavily bet or like heavily owned because people want to pair up their like long shots with what they perceive to be like the safer option. I do think Young Ninjas is probably the safest option on the slate. That doesn't make them infallible. They could definitely still lose to Isuba. These are still like really low level games in the realm of Counter-Strike for sure. I do think I was pretty impressed with Isuba yesterday, but I think overall the skill set is just a little bit of a mismatch here. There is some merit, I think, to taking the large underdog shot here with Isuba. I'm just personally not going to when I'm building just a single lineup probably. Yeah, that's probably going to be it for that one. The next one is Astralis. Is it? I keep forgetting this team name. It's Astralis Talent. Yeah, I keep wanting to call them Astralis Young also. Against alternate attacks. This one is pretty interesting as well. I do think this one is like pretty close. I respect both of these teams a decent amount. As far as the odds go, they have Astralis Talent at minus 175. That feels pretty fair. This one is also pretty interesting in terms of the pricing. When we look at the players and like how they've been playing, this alternate attacks team has still been mixing and matching players. I'm not sure what the reasoning for that is, but as you guys can see, Cello is mixing and matching some games here. This team has only now played 2 series together as this 5. They do have like a couple decent wins. I think this is still like a relatively high level team compared to this field here. But so is Astralis Talent, so I think this is going to be a high end game. And again, I'm not sure where like the optimizers and that kind of stuff will spit out. I'd assume it would probably lead you pretty heavily towards the eSuba side. Like when we do look at their player stats, like players like Ozic, who had a really good performance yesterday, they've just been performing pretty well individually. They're going to have high individual numbers, but I think that's just a different case. That's just a different level of competition that they were going against as opposed to now. I do think with this Astralis talent lineup, they've been playing against much higher level of competition overall, so their stats aren't going to be looking as good. But I think overall, their kill shares aren't great. It's pretty even across the board. The only 2 stands out there are Berzer and Fesser. Berzer, as you guys could see, is doing really well individually, and he's pretty cheap, 6,800. So he's going to be somebody I like a lot. Paying up for Fesser, again, is pretty tough. He's really expensive. I don't know how much you want to get into that necessarily. But he would probably be my second option. We saw Mr. was pretty heavily owned yesterday. I'm not sure what led to that. Maybe just all the optimizer people were getting a Mr. sped out to them. Definitely fair. I think I definitely like the Astralis Young side. Or Astralis Talent side. I feel like they are the better team, and I'm just a little bit concerned with the mixing and matching of lineups from the alternate attacks team. I feel like when I was watching the alternate attacks games yesterday, they were relatively lucky. They had a large comeback to kind of win the series essentially, just because of how like when you do lead that large comeback, the other team usually folds mentally. At least kind of from at this level, typically, that's what I see. So I feel like they got away with a lot of poor play yesterday. I don't expect that to happen again today against this Astralis Talent lineup. So Berzer for sure, super underpriced. Maybe get to Fesser if you want to like get a little bit more exposure to. I think is going to be a pretty solid win here. A quick run through. I think again Ambush probably leaning the ECB side, Young Ninjas and Astralis Talent. Those are like my plays. Those are the teams I'm going to be focusing on mainly. Again, I think there is some merit to a lot of these teams. Sampy is pretty cheap relative to value. I think players like Ozic, he's like a decent one-off option. There's definitely a world where if alternate attacks, they like win a map, and if it goes to a third map, I think your Ozic's probably going to be on the better end of that, just because of how much of a kill share he gains by himself. But I'm going to lean towards the Astralis Talent lineup getting the job done in a decent fashion here. So, yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Main players I like. Sapik maybe. Daitor maybe as a pivot away from the ambush players. I like Richie a good bit. I like Gringo a good bit. I like Linus as a solid piece from a good winning team. Fesser again, maybe if you want to get a second piece of Astralis Talent against alternate attacks. Scrolling down a little bit, Xerus pretty cheap relative to field. Ozic pretty cheap relative to field. Sixer probably the most mispriced player on the slate, that's for sure. He's very underpriced relative to field. As far as cheapies go, Devu Duvek is probably my target from down here. I think he's probably a pretty good piece. I think maybe again if you do want to get to like Mr. He had a good game yesterday, but it seems pretty unlikely given his statistical output so far. Again, like as far as value goes, it's probably just one-offing these people like Sixer. Who else did I give out? Maybe Devo Duvek. Who else was it? Oh yeah, Berzer 6,800. So I think it's like one-offing players like those, and kind of picking your spots up top. I'm going with the EC Bruges side. I expect them to be relatively underowned to field, and that's just kind of what I'm thinking on this slate. There is probably going to be a lot of volatility in this slate. I'm not expecting a whole lot. Again, super low level team, super low level players, so its consistency is definitely not what we're expecting here. So we're just hoping to be on the right side of it. Just based on what I saw yesterday, this is kind of my leans on this one. So we can hopefully try to run it back again, try to run the table once again. Obviously, again, pretty unlikely, but we take our shots, and this is where I'm leaning at least. I think if I was going to make like an objectively best like value lineup, I guess you could argue like a cash game picks maybe. I definitely would not recommend cash games in this for sure, but I just think like solid, decent, safe names here. Sixer is probably pretty decent. Sixer is probably number one, and I think like Linez, Ozek. What else was I thinking? From the Sampy side, like Zurus, Questone, Twist, pretty underpriced. Linez, Rolf, I think I like from that game. Again, Ozek, Berzer, pretty underpriced to field, and then Sixer as well. Those are probably like the group of objectively best plays, but I think getting away from some of that and getting leverage on some of that is a good approach, I think, to the slate. So that's going to be what I'm thinking tonight. Again, sorry, super late video. Hopefully a few of you guys get use out of this. So that's going to be it for me tonight. Best luck to you guys, and I will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully when I fix my sleep schedule and get everything corrected so I can have these out on time. Thank you.